The observation vessel Stellar Seeker hung at the edge of an unexplored solar system.
Captain Tejo stood on the bridge, watching the blue-green planet that rotated in the holographic display before him. From a distance, it looked peaceful, but Tejo knew appearances could be deceiving. "Report," he ordered, his voice calm but firm.
Science Officer Jaiwo checked her instruments.
Her antennae twitched as she read the data, a sign of nervousness that Tejo had learned to recognize during their years serving together.
"Captain, these readings don't make sense," she said. "The gravity is extremely strong at 9.8 meters per second squared. The air contains oxygen at levels that should cause fires. The temperature changes by more than 150 degrees from place to place. There are constant electrical storms. And there are dangerous animals everywhere." She looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief.
"Sir, this is a Class 15 Deathworld." The bridge fell silent for a moment before erupting in whispers.
Everyone knew that no expedition had ever found anything worse than a Class 12 world. First Officer Doyen walked over to Jaiwo's station.
"Are you sure about this?" she asked, checking the data herself.
"I've checked 3 times, Jaiwo replied. "This planet shouldn't have any complex life at all. The radiation alone should kill everything." Tejo considered this information.
In his 20 years of space exploration, he had never encountered such an extreme world. The Galactic Council's classification system had been created to protect travelers from dangerous planets, and a Class 15 designation would mean this entire system would be marked as forbidden.
"Send the report to Council headquarters," Tejo ordered.
"They will want to put a quarantine zone around this system immediately."
Communications Officer Min-jae nodded and began sending the data. The bridge crew continued their tasks in uneasy silence.
Discovering a Class 15 world was remarkable, but also frightening.
Such a planet was essentially a cosmic death trap.
Navigator Hyunki, who had been quiet until now, suddenly sat up straight in his chair. His fingers moved quickly over his control panel as he checked and rechecked his readings.
"Captain," he called out, his voice filled with surprise. "I'm picking up signals from the planet's surface.
They look like communications from an advanced civilization."
Tejo frowned. "That's not possible.
Nothing could evolve intelligence in such harsh conditions."
"The signals are clear," Hyunki insisted.
"And sir, they seem to use communication patterns similar to those in our database."
The captain walked over to Hyunki's station. "Show me," he ordered.
The main screen changed to show waves of data streaming in from the planet. The patterns were unmistakable, organized, repeated sequences that could only come from an intelligent source.
The bridge crew stared in amazement. "Could it be a mistake?" asked Doyen. "Perhaps an automated beacon left by another exploring race?" Jaiwo shook her head.
"These are active communications, not a recorded message."
"Something down there is talking." Tejo studied the data flows.
In all his years of exploration, he had never faced such a mystery.
According to every scientific principle the Council recognized, the planet below should be barren of intelligent life. Yet the evidence was right in front of him. "Min-jae, add this new information to our report," Tejo ordered. "And request instructions from the Council."
"Yes, Captain," the communications officer replied.
"While we wait,"
Tejo continued, "I want full scans of the planet.
Find the source of these signals."
The crew moved with renewed purpose.
The fear of the Deathworld classification was now mixed with the excitement of discovery.
If there was truly intelligent life on that hostile planet, it would change their understanding of what was possible. Hours passed as the Stellar Seeker maintained its position at a safe distance from the planet. The signals continued, growing stronger as the ship's computers worked to decode them.
"Captain," called Hyunki eventually, "I've located the main source of the transmissions. They're coming from multiple points on the largest landmass in the northern hemisphere." Tejo nodded. "Put it on screen." The holographic display zoomed in to show details of the planet's surface. The crew gasped as they saw clearly defined structures, cities, spread across the landscape. "Impossible," whispered Doyen.
At that moment, Min-jae turned from his communications station.
Captain, we have a response from the Council.
They're sending a specialized contact team. We are to remain in orbit and continue observations, but under no circumstances are we to attempt landing or direct communication.
Tejo nodded, still staring at the image of the cities on the Deathworld. Whatever lived down there had not only survived but thrived in conditions that should kill any known species. The galaxy had just become a much more interesting place. The diplomatic ship Unity entered orbit around the Class 15 Deathworld. It was the strongest vessel the Galactic Council had ever built, with triple-layered hulls and special shields against radiation. Ambassador Jinho stood in the preparation chamber, feeling uneasy as technicians checked his environmental suit for the 5th time.
Is it truly safe? He asked the head engineer, tapping the thick chestplate of his suit.
As safe as we can make it, Ambassador, the engineer replied.
It can withstand acid rain, extreme temperatures, and radiation levels that would kill most species instantly.
Yet Jinho couldn't shake his fear.
Throughout his career, he had visited over 60 alien worlds, but never one classified as a Class 15 Deathworld. The planet below them, with its crushing gravity and toxic atmosphere, was considered the most dangerous ever discovered. Security Chief Subin approached, her massive frame made even larger by her protective armor. The landing party is ready, Ambassador, she reported. 6 security officers, 2 xenobiologists, and cultural specialist Yunha.
Jinho nodded. Very well. Remember everyone, whatever lies down there will be extremely dangerous. They evolved in conditions that would kill any of us in seconds. Expect massive, heavily armored creatures with aggressive tendencies.
Make no sudden movements, show no fear.
The shuttle departed from the Unity, entering the planet's atmosphere.
Immediately, violent winds threw the craft from side to side. Warning alarms blared as the temperature outside rose to dangerous levels.
Xenobiologist Jin Wu, despite his training, vomited inside his helmet. 60 seconds to landing, announced the pilot, fighting with the controls.
Through the viewing screen, they could see a landscape that defied logic. Despite the deadly conditions, tall green plants covered the clearing where they planned to land.
How is plant life even possible here? Whispered Yunha, the cultural specialist. The radiation levels alone should prevent it.
The shuttle touched down with a heavy thud. Everyone sat in silence for a moment, gathering courage for what waited outside.
External sensors active, reported the pilot.
Detecting movement approaching the shuttle. The screens showed several figures walking toward them through the vegetation. They walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms.
They look almost like Terrans, said Yunha in disbelief.
Everyone knew about Terrans, a minor species from the outer rim of the galaxy.
But Terrans came from a Class 8 world.
Nothing resembling their body type could possibly survive on a Class 15 planet.
Impossible, muttered Jin Wu, wiping the inside of his helmet.
They must be wearing some kind of advanced protective suits we can't detect.
Ambassador Jinho took a deep breath. Let's proceed with the contact protocol. Stay alert. The airlock cycled, equalizing with the deadly outside atmosphere. As the door opened, the team felt the immediate pull of the high gravity. Each step required effort, even with their suits' assistance systems. The natives stood about 20 meters away, watching calmly. They wore simple clothes, no environmental protection at all. Some had coverings on their upper bodies and lower limbs, but their faces and hands were completely exposed to the toxic air. Jinho walked forward slowly, each step careful on the alien soil. His suit sensors screamed warnings about radiation levels, atmospheric toxins, and dangerous microorganisms in the air. Greetings, he said, his translator converting his words. We come in peace from the Galactic Council. One of the creatures stepped forward. It was smaller than the others, with long dark fur on its head. Welcome to Earth, it said in perfect Council standard language. I'm Dr. Sujin, Xenobiological Liaison. We've been expecting contact for some time. The diplomatic team froze in shock. Not only were these creatures speaking a known language, but they were standing unprotected on a world that should kill them instantly. You're human? Asked Jinho, remembering information about Terran subspecies from his briefings.
Yes, the one called Sujin smiled, showing small white teeth.
Would you like to come inside? You must be uncomfortable in those suits. Jinho couldn't find words.
His team stood motionless, staring at the impossible creatures before them. Humans were breathing the poisonous air, standing in the crushing gravity, and absorbing the deadly radiation with no protection at all. "This is not possible," whispered xenobiologist Jinwoo over the team's private communication channel. "According to every scientific principle we know, they should be dead." "Perhaps our readings are wrong," suggested Security Chief Subin.
"Maybe this planet isn't as dangerous as we thought."
But the instruments in their suits confirmed the truth. This was indeed a Class 15 Deathworld.
And somehow, these human creatures called it home. Yes, Ambassador Jinho finally managed to say to Dr. Sujin. "We would very much like to come inside. I believe we have much to learn from each other."
As the diplomatic team followed the humans toward a nearby structure, Jinho realized this mission had just become the most important first contact in Galactic Council history. Whatever allowed humans to survive on this hellish world would change everything the Council thought they knew about life in the universe. The Galactic Council team had been on Earth for 3 weeks. Each day brought new surprises that made them question everything they knew about life in the universe. Yunha, the cultural specialist, spent her days studying the humans in their natural habitat. Today, engineer Donghyun was showing her a factory where humans built machines.
Yunha still wore her protective suit, though she had removed her helmet inside the building.
The air burned her lungs slightly, but the medical team had assured her brief exposure wouldn't cause permanent damage.
"I still don't understand," Yunha said as they walked past humans working with molten metal. "How do you survive these conditions?"
Donghyun looked at her with confusion.
"What conditions do you mean?" "All of them." Yunha waved her arms.
"The gravity on this planet should crush your organs. The radiation should destroy your cells. The oxygen in your air should burn your lungs." Donghyun laughed, a sound that still startled Yunha. The concept that creatures could evolve to find joy in a death world was hard to accept. "This is just normal for us," he explained.
"We were born here.
Our bodies are made for Earth."
Yunha made notes on her datapad. The humans' casual attitude toward their deadly environment was perhaps the most shocking thing of all.
Later that day, the council delegation gathered at a large body of water that the humans called an ocean. The water contained salt levels that would cause severe damage to most council species, not to mention countless microorganisms.
To their horror, humans were deliberately entering this water.
"What are they doing?" asked Medical Officer Jaehyun, checking the vital sign monitor on his wrist. His own heart rate had increased just watching the humans.
"Swimming," replied their host, Jisoo. "It's fun." "Fun?" Jaehyun couldn't hide his shock.
"That water is near freezing."
"Yes, it's a bit cold today," Jisoo admitted.
"But many people find it refreshing." The delegation watched as humans dove into waves, allowing the water to cover their bodies completely.
Some rode on boards across the water's surface.
Children splashed and played, their high-pitched sounds of happiness carrying across the beach. "Do your young not fear death?" asked Security Chief Subin, who had removed her helmet but still wore her body armor.
Jisoo looked puzzled.
"They're perfectly safe.
We teach water safety from an early age." The next day brought even more disturbing observations.
The delegation was taken to what humans called a ski resort in a mountainous region. Here, humans strapped smooth boards to their feet and hurled themselves down steep, snow-covered slopes at dangerous speeds.
"This is entertainment?" Jaehyun asked, his medical sensors now showing elevated stress hormones in his bloodstream just from watching. "Of course," said Jisoo. "Life needs a little excitement." Ambassador Jinho noticed that several members of his team were becoming distressed by what they were witnessing.
The constant exposure to what should be lethal conditions, combined with seeing humans treating deadly activities as fun, was taking a psychological toll.
That evening, the humans hosted a formal dinner for the delegation.
The council members sat at a long table, watching in horror as their hosts consumed foods that contained chemicals classified as toxins on most civilized worlds.
Some foods were deliberately fermented, essentially, the humans were eating controlled rot.
Others contained high levels of capsaicin, a chemical weapon by council standards. "Would you like to try some kimchi?" asked a human official, offering Jinho a plate of red, fermented vegetables that sensors indicated contained billions of bacteria. "I regret our digestive systems are incompatible," Jinho replied diplomatically.
As the meal progressed, Jinho finally asked the question that had troubled him since their arrival. "If Earth is your homeworld," he said carefully, "how have you managed space travel? Surely no ship could be built to withstand these extreme conditions consistently." The human officials looked at each other. Their leader, Representative Minsik, put down his eating utensils.
"Actually," he said, "we find most other worlds quite boring.
Too easy. We've had to train ourselves to handle the low gravity and radiation-free environments of our colonies. Some humans get depressed on safer planets because there's not enough challenge."
The council delegation sat in stunned silence.
In their civilization, planets were ranked by safety.
The safest, most gentle worlds were the most desirable.
The concept that creatures would find such worlds boring was completely alien. "You mean to say," xenobiologist Jinwoo finally spoke, "that you consider Class 1 and 2 worlds undesirable?" "Not undesirable," clarified Minsik. "Just too safe. Many humans prefer a bit of danger. It makes life interesting."
The delegation exchanged glances. Everything they had learned about evolution and adaptation was being challenged by these humans. A species that not only survived but thrived in conditions that would kill most life forms, and furthermore, sought out danger for entertainment. It was beyond comprehension. That night, Yunha updated her cultural report with a new conclusion: humans were perhaps the most terrifying species the council had ever encountered, not despite their gentle appearance, but because of it. Any creature that could evolve to find comfort in a Deathworld must possess qualities that the council had never imagined possible in sentient life. The council delegation had been on Earth for 2 months when the ground started to shake.
Ambassador Jinho was in a meeting with human officials when the first tremors hit.
At first, he thought it was a problem with his suit's gravity stabilizers.
"What's happening?" he asked, grabbing the edge of the table. The human officials were already moving. "Earthquake," said one calmly. "Everyone under the tables now." The shaking grew stronger. Lights flickered and went out.
The beautiful glass windows of the embassy building cracked, then shattered. A horrible sound of tearing metal filled the air as the ceiling began to collapse. Jinho felt someone grab his arm and pull him under a heavy table.
It was human representative Minsik.
"Stay here," Minsik ordered before darting out to help others. The earthquake lasted only 3 minutes, but to Jinho it felt like hours. When the shaking finally stopped, the embassy building was in ruins.
Emergency alarms blared. Dust filled the air, making it hard to see. "Status report," Jinho called into his suit's communication system. One by one, his team checked in.
Most were alive but injured.
Science Officer Jaiwoo reported that her suit was damaged. Xenobiologist Jinwoo's voice trembled as he spoke.
"My oxygen supply is failing," Jinwoo reported.
"I estimate 15 minutes before my suit can't protect me from the atmosphere."
Outside, the landscape had changed completely. Great cracks had opened in the ground, spewing toxic gases. Dark clouds gathered overhead, and strange lightning flashed between them. The delegation's shuttle, their only way back to the orbiting ship, was buried under tons of collapsed building. "We're going to die here," Jinwoo whimpered as the delegation gathered in what remained of the embassy's main hall. "This planet is going to kill us all." Then something remarkable happened. Humans poured into the damaged building. They wore no special protection against the dust or gases. Some were bleeding from cuts, but they ignored their own injuries. "This way," called a human emergency worker, helping council members toward the exit.
"We need to get everyone to the shelter." Jinho watched in amazement as humans lifted heavy pieces of fallen wall to free trapped delegation members. They worked quickly and calmly, as if the disaster was a minor inconvenience rather than a life-threatening emergency. Science Officer Jaiwa's suit had been badly damaged.
She couldn't walk, and her helmet was cracked, letting in Earth's poisonous air. A human rescue worker named Hyogen simply picked her up as if she weighed nothing.
How are you doing this? Jiwo gasped through her damaged helmet, struggling to breathe. How are you not dying from these conditions? Hyogen looked confused as she carried Jiwo across the broken landscape. This is just a moderate earthquake. You should see what happens during typhoon season. Rain began to fall, drops that sizzled when they hit metal. Acid rain, deadly to most species. The humans merely pulled up the hoods on their clothing and continued working. After an hour of rescue efforts, the surviving council members were gathered in an underground shelter. Medical workers treated their injuries. Engineers tried to repair damaged environmental suits. Ambassador Jinho found himself sitting next to Earth's Defense Minister Juno.
I don't understand, Jinho said, still in shock from what he had witnessed.
Your people faced deadly conditions without protection. They lifted weights that should be impossible in this gravity. They breathed toxic air without harm. Minister Juno nodded. That's just how we're built.
But no species could evolve naturally to withstand such conditions, Jinho insisted. Even with our most advanced technology, we can barely survive here for short periods.
Juno was quiet for a moment.
Then he looked at Jinho with serious eyes.
Ambassador, there's something you should know about humans.
Something we don't usually tell other species right away. Jinho waited, sensing that he was about to learn something important.
Earth is considered a habitable world by our standards, Juno said. In fact, it's one of our more hospitable colonies.
Jinho stared at him.
What do you mean, colonies? This isn't your homeworld? No.
We originated from a planet orbiting a pulsar star with twice Earth's gravity and much higher radiation levels.
Our original world was destroyed in a cosmic event several thousand years ago. The implications hit Jinho like a physical blow. If Earth, a Class 15 Deathworld that should be uninhabitable, was considered hospitable by human standards, what kind of nightmare world had they evolved on? So you're saying?
Jinho's voice trailed off, unable to complete the thought. We're saying that what you call extreme conditions, we call a nice day, Juno explained simply. Humans don't just survive in environments that other species consider deadly, we're built for them.
Jinho looked around the shelter.
Humans were still coming and going, bringing in more survivors, treating injuries, distributing food and water. None seemed bothered by conditions that had the council delegation fighting for their lives. For the first time, Jinho felt a chill that had nothing to do with his damaged environmental systems. The Galactic Council had classified Earth as the most dangerous planet ever discovered. And it turned out this was where humans went to relax. The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council was filled as never before.
All 743 member species had sent representatives to this historic meeting.
Many had traveled for weeks to attend in person rather than by hologram. The air buzzed with excited conversation in hundreds of languages.
Supreme Counselor Taeyeon, tall and dignified, raised his hand for silence.
The noise died down as thousands of eyes, optical sensors, and sensory organs turned toward him. Today marks a turning point in galactic history, Taeyeon said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. 6 months ago, we discovered a species living on what we classified as a Class 15 Deathworld. Today, we welcome that species into our council. A small figure walked to the center of the chamber.
Ambassador Jihai was shorter than most council representatives.
She had no scales, no extra limbs, no protective shell, just soft skin and a simple body. Yet every being in the room watched her with a mixture of respect and fear. The Human Federation thanks the Council for this welcome, Jihai said. Her voice was gentle but carried easily through the chamber. We look forward to sharing our unique perspective and helping explore worlds previously thought too dangerous for settlement.
The voting that followed was quick. For the first time in Council history, a new classification was created, Deathworld Specialist. This title recognized that humans could survive conditions that would kill other species in minutes. After the ceremony, many representatives approached Ambassador Jihai with questions and offers of alliance. Everyone wanted human help with planets they had previously avoided.
Worlds rich in resources but too hot, too cold, too radioactive, or too toxic might now be accessible with human assistance. 1 year later, Captain Tejo stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Horizon. It was the same ship he had used to discover Earth, but much had changed since then. His crew now included 5 humans who served as Deathworld consultants. The ship orbited a stormy planet with conditions even worse than Earth. Acid rain fell constantly. Winds strong enough to strip flesh from bone howled across the surface. The atmosphere contained almost no oxygen. Completely uninhabitable, said First Officer Doyen, checking the sensor readings. Human specialist Wu Jin looked at the same data and smiled. Looks fine to me. A bit windy, but nothing serious. Tejo had worked with Wu Jin for 6 months now, but the human's casual attitude toward deadly environments still shocked him. We'll send down probes first, Tejo ordered. No need to risk personnel until we know more. I can go now, Wu Jin offered. It would be faster than waiting for probe data. Tejo looked at the human with wonder. I still don't understand how your species can do this. How did you become so durable? Wu Jin considered the question as he checked his minimal protective gear. The humans used thin suits that would be useless to any council species. We had no choice, Wu Jin explained. Our original homeworld was much harsher than Earth. We either adapted or died. Over generations, those who survived passed on their strength to their children. But it's not just physical, Tejo pressed. Your mental attitude is different. Other species would break under constant danger, but humans seem to enjoy it. Wu Jin smiled. Same principle. We don't just survive hardship, we seek it out. It's how we know we're alive. Minutes later, Tejo watched through the ship's cameras as Wu Jin stepped onto the planet's surface. The wind nearly knocked him down. Acid rain sizzled on his suit. But the human walked forward, collecting samples and data, completely at ease in conditions that would kill Tejo in seconds. In the months since humans joined the Council, over 30 new worlds had been opened for settlement. Rare minerals were now accessible. New trade routes were established through regions previously considered too dangerous to cross. As he watched Wu Jin work, Tejo finally understood the great irony of their discovery. The Council had spent centuries avoiding death worlds, seeing them as places of horror. They never imagined that such worlds would produce the most valuable allies the galaxy had ever known. That evening, as the exploration team reviewed their findings, Science Officer Jaiwo summarized what many were thinking. It's strange to think about, she said. For thousands of years, we avoided Class 10 and higher worlds, thinking nothing good could come from them. We were wrong. The deadliest environments produced the strongest allies. Tejo nodded. In 1 year, the addition of humans had changed galactic exploration more than the previous century of Council efforts. Species that once competed now worked together, with humans bridging the gap between different environmental needs. As the meeting ended, Wu Jin headed toward the airlock again, eager to continue exploring the hostile planet below. Be careful down there, Tejo called, more from habit than necessity. Wu Jin grinned. Where's the fun in that? Watching the human disappear into the storm, Tejo felt something he hadn't experienced in years of space exploration, excitement about the unknown. With humans as allies, the galaxy suddenly seemed full of new possibilities. The deadliest worlds had created the toughest species, and the Galactic Council was stronger for it.